It is the agenda for the 21st century you're living in today. For a brave new world where everything that you cherished and held true will no longer exist.
An 8.0 magnitude earthquake has hit Papua New Guinea. This is the largest earthquake to ever have hit this area. Right off the coast, you were telling me, is where it actually happened.
Yeah,
have they issued a warning yet?
Tsunami warnings widespread have been issued at this point, because there is that concern, of course, that when you have an earthquake, especially in that area of the world, just off the coastline, especially with that epicenter in the middle of the Pacific, you're going to see that potential there for those tsunami waves. And fortunately, we don't have any word on injuries, but it sounds like it's just happened, and so it may be a little while before we receive official word.
You're looking at pictures of I-95 in Baltimore. This is it. At least 2 people were killed in a 55-car pileup. Another person was killed in an accident in Virginia. That brings the total to 3 people dead because of the weather just today. Freezing rain as much of the area is at a standstill there. This is a live picture near I-395, and you can see in the bottom left corner of your screen, extremely poor visibility. You could hardly see anything. In Indiana, there were nearly 200 accidents due to icy conditions. Indianapolis firefighters actually had to rescue people from I-465 via ladder because the road was so slick. You see the images there. Nationwide right now, 157 million people are under winter weather alerts.
Meet Uncle Sam. He has a lot of bills to pay. Almost $4 trillion worth every year. Uncle Sam's income is a little over $2 trillion per year. To make up the difference, the deficit, he does what most Americans do. He borrows money. When Uncle Sam takes out a loan, he calls it a bond. Bonds can be held by banks, investors, or even foreign governments. Uncle Sam has to promise to pay interest on these bonds, just as you do on any loan you take out. Ever think about paying your mortgage with your credit card? That's exactly what Uncle Sam does. He takes out new loans, new bonds, so that he can make payments on the old ones. All those loans, and especially all that interest, adds up. Right now, Uncle Sam owes about $14 trillion. To put that in perspective, 14 trillion is about the same as the national GDP, the total value of all the goods and services produced by the American economy in an entire year. It's such a huge amount of money that Uncle Sam is starting to run out of people to borrow from, and he's having trouble just paying the interest on his loans. The obvious solution would be to either cut spending or increase taxes. But if he cuts spending, the people that he's spending money on would complain that they don't have money to spend, and that he was hurting the economy. If he tried to raise taxes enough to close this gap, not only would people definitely have less money to spend, he'd probably have riots on his hands. So Uncle Sam chooses the easy way to make money. Just make it. He calls up the Federal Reserve, which is our central bank, and, like magic, dollars are created and deposited in banks all around America. The problem is that the more of something there is, the less it's worth. Same goes for the US dollar. The more dollars there are, the less each one will buy. That's why commodities like gasoline, food, and gold become more expensive when Uncle Sam does his money-making magic. The commodities aren't really worth more. Your money is just worth less. That's called inflation. Remember the foreign governments that lent money to Uncle Sam? When they lent money to the American government, something interesting happened. It made the US look richer, and their countries look poorer. When a country looks poor compared to America, $1 of our money buys a lot of their money. So they can pay their workers only a few pennies a day. With such low labor costs, they can sell their products in America for lower prices than any American manufacturer can. The easiest way for American companies to compete is to move their factories overseas and pay their workers a few pennies a day too. This contributes to a recession. Americans lose their jobs, stop paying taxes, and start collecting government benefits like Medicaid and unemployment. This means that Uncle Sam has even less income and even more expenses. At the same time, the people who still have jobs are desperate to keep them, so they tend to do more work, but not to get paid anymore. When your dollars are worth less, and you're not earning more of them, that's called stagflation. And this is why Uncle Sam is in a catch-22. He can't raise taxes or cut spending without making the recession worse. And he can't have the Federal Reserve create more money without making inflation worse. For now, he can keep borrowing money, but since he can't even pay the interest on the loans he already has, it just makes his inevitable bankruptcy even worse. Whether it's in 2 months or 2 years, the day will come when Uncle Sam can no longer pay his bills. When that happens, the banks, investors, and foreign governments who are counting on that money won't be able to pay their bills. You see, just like Uncle Sam, governments, banks, and corporations don't actually have much money. Mostly, all they have is debt to each other. If one link in the debt chain stops paying, defaults, the whole thing falls apart. If investors can't pay their bills, corporations won't be able to pay their employees. If banks can't pay their bills, you won't be able to take out a loan, use a credit card, or even withdraw your savings. If foreign governments can't pay their bills, their own banks and corporations will have the same problems. That's called a global economic collapse. It's never happened before, so nobody really knows how bad it will be, how long it will last, or even how we'll eventually get out of it. The house of cards has already been built. There's no painless way to dismantle it now. All we can do is to educate each other about what's actually going on and to prepare for what may be very extraordinary circumstances.
For too long, we've been moving from one reckless intervention to another, countries that most of you have never even heard of before. It's crazy, and it's going to stop. A Trump administration will focus on the vital national security interests of the United States. And that means crushing ISIS rapidly and defeating radical Islamic terrorism.
U.S. President Barack Obama has a warning for Russia on computer hacking.
Not to do this to us, because we can do stuff to you.
He says he told Russian President Vladimir Putin directly to, in his words, cut it out. He says the breaches stopped after that, but the Democrats' emails had already been released on WikiLeaks. President-elect Donald Trump has said it's ridiculous. He doesn't think Russia was involved in the hacking of his opponent's campaign. U.S. President Barack Obama took the opportunity to say that in itself is pretty ridiculous. He says it's indisputable. He's going to have a full report before he leaves office, but he went out of his way to really say pretty negative things about Russia and its leader.
The script is not yet written. We do not know what the page will read tomorrow. But for the first time in a long time, what we do know is that the pages will be authored by each and every one of you. You, the incredible American people, will be in charge. Your voice, your desires, your hopes, your aspirations will never again fall on deaf ears.
So this one came in a day before the election. Hey, Blankhead, I'll find you and put a bullet in your fat, blanking mouth.
Death threats fill Michigan elector Michael Banarian's social media accounts.
So this is a tweet I received, has a picture of a noose on it.
His mailbox packed with demands coming from around the country. 2,000 just this week, he says.
Oregon, Oklahoma, Washington State.
I am so sorry.
The mailman even interrupting our interview to deliver another 600 letters, all calling on him not to vote for Donald Trump. Something Banarian, along with Michigan's 15 other electors, pledged to do, regardless of the pressures.
I've had death wishes, people just saying, I hope you die, do society a favor, throw yourself in front of a bus. And just recently I was reading a blog about me, and unfortunately these people not only called for the burning of myself, but my family, which is completely out of line.
Banarian has no choice. Michigan state law keeps him from changing his vote. Electors in 27 other states and the District of Columbia also have what are known as faithless elector laws. But in 22 states, electors can go rogue.
The forgotten men and women, by the way, they're not so forgotten anymore, are they? They didn't know what hit them. Oh, those forgotten people, they're not forgotten. They are not forgotten. They're still writing stories about it. They say, what happened? They came out to vote big league, didn't they? And these are great people. These are smart people. These are hard-working people. These are people that sometimes haven't voted in a long time.
Park Avenue, Fifth Avenue, Central Park West, prime New York City real estate. And now more than ever, properties with those addresses are attracting the eyes of a particular group of buyers, Russians.
Yeah, it's a trophy property.
Their interest primarily in luxury high-rises like this apartment, which boasts 3 bedrooms, high-end finishes, its own private elevator.
You don't want a neighbor on the same floor.
And stunning views for a $12.7 million price tag. High-end properties across the U.S. have always attracted the eye of the Russian rich, but in recent years, buying stalled as Western countries, including the U.S., imposed sanctions on Russia after it annexed Crimea from Ukraine. But times have changed.
It wouldn't be bad to get along with Russia, right? It wouldn't be bad.
President-elect Donald Trump hasn't been shy about his warm approach toward Russia.
I think I'd get along very well with Vladimir Putin.
I just think so.
Edward Mermelstein, an attorney who facilitates foreign real estate purchases in the U.S., says investors are listening.
They see Trump as someone who is open to a conversation that was lacking for the last couple of years, and someone who opens the door where the door was shut for so many years.
After sweeping across Europe, bird flu is back in the UK. The British government confirmed the outbreak of the H5N8 strain on a farm in Tetney, Lincolnshire. However, fears are rife that cases could spring up elsewhere in the country. Amid complaints not enough is being done to ensure bird keepers are observing a 30-day quarantine.
Austrian police scour train cars and tracks looking for migrant stowaways. They say they're trying to stem the flow of illegal migrants after a man and woman from Eritrea hidden on a train were crushed to death earlier this month. Austria's Tyrol province has been a way station for migrants headed for Western Europe. They've been braving freezing temperatures to hitch a ride across the Alps to Germany. Police spokesman Manfred Doomer says they're picking up their patrols.
We have observed the phenomenon of illegal migrants coming from Italy trying to continue their journey northwards in this way. Therefore, we have intensified our controls together with Austrian Federal Railways.
Officials say they're trying to prevent another disaster after 71 dead migrants were found locked in a bus in August 2015.
Maracaibo was once the wealthy oil capital of Venezuela. Today, it is a city with no cash, in a country that has recalled half of the money supply. Unexpectedly, people scrambled to return the highest denomination note, 100 bolivars, following presidential orders. But the central bank could not handle the crowds. Waving their now worthless bills in the air, they shouted, "We want change." The country faces one of the highest inflation rates on the planet.
Tens of thousands of protesters have taken to the streets in Seoul for the 8th consecutive week to demand the swift and permanent removal of President Park Geun-hye from office. Although Park has been stripped of substantial executive powers, she is still allowed to retain the title of president, continue to live in the Blue House, while the Constitutional Court deliberates the motion to impeach her. On Friday, Park's legal team argued that the impeachment approved by Parliament had no legal basis.
Thousands of people have rallied in the southern Turkish town of Reyhanli near the border with Syria, calling on Turkey's political leaders to do more to end the war in Syria. The military has reported 13 people killed and 48 wounded in a car bomb attack on a bus carrying off-duty soldiers in the central city of Kayseri. Several earlier, and Turkish Deputy Prime Minister Veysi Kaynak said the attack specifically targeted the bus and resembled the twin blast last week near an Istanbul soccer stadium.
Showing solidarity with those in Aleppo, these protesters in Syria's Idlib province chant, "With our souls, with our blood, we will defend you, Aleppo." Idlib was seized by opposition forces 18 months ago. Many people fled, but even more Syrians displaced by fighting arrived. And now that the rebels have lost Aleppo city, temporary camps like this one are quickly filling up with more evacuees.
We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate, only the unloved hate, the unloved and the unnatural. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite!
In a time of domestic crisis, men of goodwill and generosity should be able to unite regardless of party or politics.